In 1931, the world was a smaller place. The unknown still plagued mankind to explore, and after only a few years of powered flight, the North Pole was viewed from the air in a modified airship that never made landfall. For one man, Hubert Wilkins, this wasn't enough. He had to make it to the pole for real. Ship, too fragile. Dogs, too slow. No. Wilkins needed something better. He wanted to go under. This week on Cheeky Tales, we dive down into the depths of the Arctic to learn about the expedition of the Nautilus.
Oh, behave.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Back to Cheeky Tales.
Yeah.
He got his Nautilus joke out of the way now.
When you started that, I was like, we've already done Santa Claus. Why are we doing Santa Claus again?
Nothing else happens at the North Pole.
Yeah, what else happens at the North Pole? That's where Santa lives.
We're just doing more boats.
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 Is this a boat?
It's an underwater boat.
It's a sub-boat.
Underwater boat.
Mm.
I mean, we've covered the history of submarines.
That we have.
Yeah. I guess we just cover some more of the history of submarines.
Yeah.
This is one submarine I didn't include in my submarine episode.
That's a cool submarine, this one.
I like that we're 2 episodes into the second 100 episodes and we're covering a boat one.
Yes, we are.
And we did a little bit of World War II.
And this one includes a bit of World War I, bit of Dub 1. All right. We're back.
Dub
Back for another episode. I'm hosting this time, which is nice, I suppose.
Yeah, it's weird. It's not New Year's Day.
No, it's not New Year's Day. I haven't hosted for a while.
Or New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've hosted. It's fun.
Yeah.
Glad to be back. Got a real microphone this time I'm hosting, which is good.
Yeah, you're going to sound good.
I probably won't sound good. I'm not feeling real great.
Who's fact-checking this episode?
We're off the chain.
Holy crap.
We're going off book.
I know.
I'm scared.
I'm making up facts.
All the facts are up here, baby.
Hold me, boy.
All the facts are up here.
me, boy.
I'm scared. I'm scared.
All right. So, yeah, this is a good episode. We're covering the Nautilus.
This is fun. I like this story.
It's a really good story.
Based on what you've said so far, I'm keen for it.
It's got Australians in it. It's got our man, Big E, Ernest
Shacko's whiskey.
Shackleton.
Oh, Shacky boy's in here. Hey, Shacky boy.
Pour one down my throat for Shacky.
Pour one out for our man, Shackles.
Pour one out, did you say?
No, not quite. One in.
We're not starting that again.
Whereabouts on the couch would you like me to pour it out?
We don't need.
Right here, big boy.
Oh, dear. I was watching YouTube, and there's a YouTube channel I watched. There's no way they've seen this, but shout out to Overly Sarcastic Productions and their history summarized videos. Big fan. Think you'll like them if you haven't seen them before. And he always enters a tagline, particularly with his history ones, with "Let's do some history." Maybe we need some sort of like, we're getting out of the ranting into the story. We need like a tagline.
You want to call your shot on a tagline right now?
No, I'm
whatever
saying
you're about to say will become the tagline of this show.
I kind of feel like our pun was always the kind of...
The pun was the tagline.
Yeah.
We got a bit, The pun started to run out.
Well, down Periscope.
Yeah. Started to run out of air on the puns.
Up Periscope, but let's peer this story.
Yeah. Up Periscope is correct. Down Periscope would be the up.
You're right. Yeah, because it
terrible.
comes down from the roof. Don't worry. I've already blown it.
Yeah. So I guess let's get on with it. Hubert Wilkins.
Huey.
Sir Hubert Wilkins, technically, was born in Mount Bryan East in South Australia on the 31st of October, 1888. Say it.
Huey.
Say it too spooky.
Too spooky.
Huey or Bert? What's his nickname?
I just call him Hubert.
Hubert. Can I just point out quickly how Australian Sean went when he said South Australia?
I didn't pay attention. Can you say it again, please, Sean?
We haven't even gotten past the first line of the script, and we're already stopping to point out the way I pronounce words.
Yeah.
It's good. I said Hubert Wilkins was born in Mount Bryan East in South Australia.
That's not what you said. That's not how you said that.
Unlike our
South
episodes,
Australia,
he's
yeah.
not pulling us up on French or Italian or German words. We're pulling him up on an Australian word.
Damn straight.
He didn't say it wrong. He just
true.
said it ochre.
Okay.
But also,
yeah.
he goes for the safe option. He goes for the Australian English names.
Mm-hmm. So he was born on the 31st of October, 1888. Very spooky. Born on Halloween. The last of 13 children
3 spooky, 5
that's-
me.
in a large family of pioneers and sheep farmers.
That's unlucky.
How many children was it? 13?
13, the
Yeah.
last of 13 children. As a teenager, he moved to Adelaide to work in a travelling cinema which eventually took him
What?
all the way. Yeah, he worked in a
Oh.
traveling cinema.
How does that work?
So they
They
would
just set up a screen somewhere outside and off you go.
more or less, they didn't have dedicated like cinema theaters. They would travel around and like set up a system to actually play movies for people that they didn't have a cinema nearby, so they could play like newsreels and things like that.
Yeah, because remember, cinemas weren't just movies.
They were theaters
Yeah.
that then doubled as picture theaters.
So you'd rock up and pay you like 1 pence or whatever and see the news.
Yeah, right.
It was a common way for people to get updates on the wars.
I knew they did it like before the movie. They'd have an update on the war or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he worked in this traveling cinema. And
Let's have a look at what's going on the Eastern Front.
yeah. That's exactly what happened.
bloody
That's
awful.
true. Yeah. That's
Anyway,
right.
The Germans keep shelling our troops, but don't worry, our boys will pull through.
here's Charlie Chaplin.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So yeah, he was working in this traveling cinema and learnt a lot about cinematography as a whole, which was pretty cool. And it eventually took him all the way to Sydney as a cinematographer, and then England. Big jump.
Yeah.
Yep.
Almost the biggest jump you
Almost
can
the
make.
biggest jump, yeah. With his skills in cinematography, he became an early pioneer of aerial photography, a skill set which took him on several Arctic expeditions to see the pole.
What year was this?
This was in the like sort of pre-World War One, like as his teenage years.
So it was like
Wasn't it?
1908 or something.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So
Yeah.
after the advent of human flight,
So Titanics get busy getting built.
Oh, it's just in my last episode when we talked about Sidney Cotton, he was also well known for being one of the pioneers of aerial photography.
he was
Another Australian.
he was more the pioneer of color photography.
That's
as
what
well.
it was.
Yes,
Color film.
photography.
Correct.
Yeah, he
Yep.
developed color film. He engaged in aerial photography, but he developed color
Of
film.
processing color film.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what it was. I do remember reading that now. Yep.
In 1917, however,
Man, Aussie's just doing it.
just killing it.
We used to be a
Aussies and the Scots.
invention powerhouse.
Aussies and the Scots. Scots have invented
And then
a bunch of
especially-
And the Kiwis.
Especially
split the atom.
in the aerial front too, because there's that bloke from Gympie who was like a well-known pioneer in Australian aviation.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent Aaron a photo of a piece from his original glider that was on the Apollo 13.
Yep.
That survived
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
the explosion of Apollo 13. I can't think of his goddamn name.
It'll come to you about 2 hours after we finish recording.
So in 1917, Hubert returned to Australia to fight in World War One. He enlisted originally into the Flying Corps, but then moved to being an official war photographer. This didn't affect his moxie, though, as during the Battle of Passchendaele, his efforts to rescue wounded soldiers earned him a military cross. To this day, he remains the only We've got to stop looking at Apollo during our episodes. It's very distracting.
Only for you.
Yeah, when both of you just like turn away from me and start looking at the cat.
He
Yeah.
moved.
Yeah.
So he's
Look
a
at him.
cat.
He's in shot.
Look at him. He's adorable.
Look at that fat bastard.
I'm talking about Hubert Wilkins, the only official war photographer to ever receive a combat medal.
And I'm very proud
And
of
you
him
guys
as an
went-
Australian. But look at that cat. You know, nobody in the world other than you would have known if you didn't decide to absolutely chuck a tantrum
Yeah.
right then.
Had to do it. Cut it. I'll do it again.
I refuse.
No, we'll do it again. We're just going to look at the cat again
Yeah.
at the same time. Okay, Sean, you have my undivided attention.
So
You've
being
got my divided attention.
Speak to my soul, Sean.
an official war photographer, this didn't really affect his moxie. I really wanted to use the word moxie. During the Battle of Passchendaele, his efforts to rescue wounded soldiers earned him a military cross, and to this day, he remains the only Australian official photographer to receive a combat medal.
That is incredible, Sean.
It is.
I can't imagine anything taking my attention away from this story right now.
What's more incredible is he got another one.
2.
Yeah, he got another one. So later at the
That's
battle.
like twice as many.
2.
So later,
Sorry.
We got to stop being assholes.
2. He got 2.
We can't be assholes the whole episode. It's genuinely a good story.
it's a really good story.
It's a really good story, but we wouldn't be doing this if he didn't have the tantrum.
Turned and looked at the cat. There's a wide shot. We're on camera.
But the editing is just you.
Tangent.
Get back to the story.
I'm trying to. Anyway.
So he's got his first
Military cross, yes.
He's got his second one.
No, he
We
hasn't got to
haven't
have a
covered
second
that
one
yet.
But you said...
He's just told you that.
Okay.
Yeah, to try and keep you invested so you don't look at
I'm
the cat again.
completely invested. Whether if I'm looking at the cat or at Aaron's crutch, I'm invested.
So later, at the Battle of the Hindenburg Line, Hubert took control of a group of American soldiers that had lost their officer and then commanded them until the support had arrived. For this, he was awarded a bar to his military cross, which is what happens if you get, again, effectively. Sir
Well-
John Monash,
Well done, Hubert.
Sir John Monash, the father of modern combined arms warfare, told an American journalist that Hubert was Australia's Lawrence of Arabia. So the
High
journalist that asked him that was the guy that actually wrote the book about Lawrence of Arabia. And so he said, does Australia have anybody of such caliber? He goes, oh, there's one, yeah. So Hubert Wilkins, he said his life is absolutely quite extraordinary.
Why haven't we done Sir Lawrence of Arabia?
I don't know. I don't really know that much about it.
Neither do I. I know
About
the
the story.
name. I don't know the story.
Keep it in the book. Keep it in the book. After the war, Hubert even served as an ornithologist, a person that watches birds, aboard our man Big E Ernest Shackleton's last ever expedition.
This is 2 episodes in a row that we've mentioned
Bird watching.
ornithologists.
Yes, it's a great word, isn't it?
I just think it's an industry I didn't expect to talk about in 100% of
100%
the episodes we
of it.
recorded tonight.
Yeah. It's just funny the other week too. My sister were doing like trivia and they're like, what is this? And I'm like, someone who studies birds. And my sister was like, how did you know that? I'm like,
I like
Because
birds.
that's you.
I like birds.
I like birds.
Because he's me.
Yeah.
Because
So,
I'm him.
so Hubert was aboard Ernest Shackleton's last ever expedition aboard the Quest to Antarctica, where he died in 1922 aboard his vessel. But yeah,
The Quest.
yes, the Quest.
Is that the name of the ship?
That was the name of the ship.
Cheers, Shako.
Cheers, Shako. He was aboard the ship with him.
Shakas for Shako. There was quite a lot left in that.
No, there wasn't. Small paw. In April 1928, a year after Charles Lindbergh had flown across the Arctic in the airship, Hubert and a pilot named Carl Ben Eielson flew across the Arctic Circle from Alaska to Norway, and he stopped along the way at Ellesmere Island, which is the furthest north and biggest island in the Canadian archipelago, sort of, I suppose you could call it, like the largest island as part of Canada, and also again on some drift ice, which is pretty cool.
So this is what's got me stumped.
Yep.
You got old mate Aussie, Hubie.
Yep.
He's Southern Hemisphere.
Yes.
He's going to the Northern Pole to check it out and try and do stuff on it.
Yes.
Your last episode, was it your last episode, Chuckle?
Yeah.
Shackleton, Scottish.
He's the northern hemisphere going to the southern hemisphere. Yeah.
What is going on? Just go to the one closest to you. Make it easy.
Yeah. I think it's just all about like what was available at the time.
Yeah, I get it. At these points, other parts have been already explored. And, yeah. Anyway.
Time of the year.
But it
planning.
just seems like these 2 guys are crossing paths.
But also, like, it's the kind of exploration because Antarctica is a continent.
Yeah.
So you're not like dealing with shifting ice and stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Mm.
Whereas with the Arctic, it is a constant flow.
No,
By the
they
time-
weren't dealing with shifting ice all the time. They got stuck in the ice for 2.5 years and
Yeah, but like-
twiddled their thumbs.
Yeah, but
if
the ice moved the whole time.
But if it goes correctly, they get onto land.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Arctic, you are literally just
It's
going
just
into
ice.
the ice and then just hoping you float past the pole.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. And also, all of this happened well after what's considered the golden age of Antarctic exploration. Like, it already once Shackleton passed away, that was it, basically.
Yeah, okay.
Mm.
But you get my point, right? These 2 like
Yeah, they're
crossing
going the
paths.
opposite. Yeah,
Yeah.
just do your own side.
Yeah.
Stick to
Yeah.
what you know.
Stay on your own side of the fence.
Anyway, on this flight across the Arctic Circle, him and Carl Eielson landed at Ellesmere Island and also on some drift ice, which is pretty cool because they were the first people to ever land a plane on like a floating piece of ice, for which he was knighted.
He was
mean,
knighted
He
for
was
just landing a
knighted
plane
for landing-
somewhere.
Yeah,
Well, I imagine that
and some
kind
other
of
stuff.
I imagine
Yeah.
that kind of voice is always kind of like flat and open. You're not going to hit a tree, are you?
Not necessarily.
If
It's pretty small.
If it's float ice, it can like crunch into each other. And
Yeah.
hmm
also, I imagine landing on like snow covered ice would be really difficult because of the whiteout that you get.
That's what I was thinking. It'd be hard to like a,
Gauge your
Gauge your
height.
depth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
During a party in New York to celebrate his knighthood, he would meet his future wife, an Australian actress named Suzanne Bennett, which is pretty cool. In New York, just bumped across an Australian actress.
I hear another accent.
Because of his knighthood,
You're
Hubert
from South
gained,
Australia.
Hey, Gan.
with his knighthood, Hubert gained the attention of an American newspaper publisher named William Randolph Hearst, who would continue to fund Hubert's expeditions in the future. Hearst had a flair for the dramatic, and he was very rich and had a pretty important newspaper.
I could sell newspapers with this guy.
Pretty much.
Mm.
So in 1930, Hubert and his wife are on holiday with a wealthy friend of theirs named Lincoln Ellsworth.
The 30s.
Yeah, the 30s again. Sorry, everyone. During the holiday, they planned a trans-Arctic expedition involving a submarine. Yeah, the plan was to conduct extensive meteorology and to collect data of academic interest while they were along the way. So drill into ice, study the waters, do as much as they possibly can to try and get information, but also, hey, we're going to be the first people to cross the pole underwater because
Was it a U-boat? Undersea boat?
it was a British undersea boat.
Undersea boat.
Undersea
water.
boat? Was not an undersea boat?
So Lincoln Ellsworth contributed $70,000 to the expedition,
It's like $6 trillion today.
plus a 20 grand loan,
In the 1930s, I'm going to guess that's going to be roughly 1.5 million. in today's.
1.5 Titanics, yes. William Randolph Hearst,
Not at this point, it wasn't worth much by now.
William Randolph Hearst, the newspaper publisher, he purchased the exclusive rights to the story for $61,000.
Oh, jeez.
The Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute contributed a further $35,000.
Cha-ching.
And Wilkins, who raised quite a lot of money doing lecturing tours and wrote a book about his plan. Sorry, I couldn't get it on Amazon in time. He managed to put forward $25,000 of his own money towards the expedition.
So how much do they get total?
115?
Got to be more than that. There was one was like
70,
70K and then 60K. And
70
then,
and 60, so we got
I missed that.
130,
130,
165,
170.
160,000, 180, 191,000 plus a 20 grand loan.
yeah, so 210.
In
211?
1930.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
What did I say 40,000 was roughly in the 1940s? We're about 800,000.
Yeah.
There's a fair bit more money that comes into
So
play.
times that by 7. So you're looking at about maybe $5 million in today's
Crazy.
money.
There's more money that comes into play later. Even more money. Almost as much as that as an additional sum.
Must be nice.
So unfortunately, Hubert was not a US citizen. This means that the old World War I submarine that he wanted to buy, he wasn't allowed to buy. He wanted to purchase an old World War I sub called the the O-12. He wanted to buy it off a naval auction, and they're like, "You're not a US citizen. You can't buy our submarine." He goes, "Oh, please."
But I want it.
And they're like, "No, you can't do that." So a submarine, a naval architect named Simon Lake bought it and then leased it to him for $1 every year for 5 years.
Right.
Bargain.
Bargain. This came
Add that
with
to the total.
This came with some clauses, however, which proved to be a little bit of his undoing. So the sub originally named the O-12, but that's a pretty boring name. So he named it the Nautilus after the Jules Verne story, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah.
Of course, excellent one. Obviously, he needed to try and make this as dramatic as possible so he could, get money off his newspaper backing rich man that gives him all this cash. The submarine was heavily modified for the voyage. The reinforcements were made by the owner of the submarine and renowned naval architect Simon Lake. He put heavy steel plates and concrete in the front of the vessel and a big hydraulic shock-absorbing rod that just stuck out the front of it. So if it hit the ice, it would go...
Punchy.
Old punchy, yeah.
Heavy plates and concrete don't sound like the best thing to put in a submarine.
No, they don't sound buoyant. But they didn't want to hit ice, basically. They wanted to be able to ram some ice, and if they were under the sea, not die from hitting ice.
Under the sea.
Under the sea.
I guess it's okay to be a little bit heavy if you don't hit some ice and immediately die.
Yes. So along the roof of the submarine, if you
Until
could
you
call
run
it that.
out of oxygen, and then being a little bit too heavy is not great.
So along the top of the submarine, I've changed from roof because it seems wrong. It's an underwater vessel. Let's just say the top. Along the
Surely
top.
they have a word for the top and bottom.
Probably. I can't fact check. I'm telling the story.
You're monitoring the sound wave, aren't you?
Monitoring the sound wave.
I'm just making sure it keeps recording.
Fair enough. So along the roof, he added steel sledges to glide along the ice if they hit
Nice.
the top of it.
So
and
roof skis
roof skis and a hydraulic arm
to push themselves.
to sort of keep a distance away from the ice. So if they did push up against it, the sledges are there, but this hydraulic spring-loaded arm,
So they could bounce off it.
they could sort of just to be like, okay, we can feel it scraping like a car antenna.
Don't
Just
keep going.
Don't keep going.
Oh, so they know how to not get stuck
They
under
know how to
stuff.
not get- don't-
Interesting.
Don't talk about it.
The top of a submarine is
Almost
called
like if you're doing something professionally, you should, plan.
The
and
top of a submarine is
understand
called
the conditions.
a sail
the sail, sure.
or fin or coning tower. That's like the little,
Oh, that's just the tower.
Yeah.
That's the tower. The roof.
I don't think
The top bit.
So Simon Lake also added rather foolishly,
topside.
topside, he added a giant ice drill. So he wanted them to be able to drill upwards through the ice so they could get air and recharge batteries and get out of the vessel.
Yeah.
So he thought, oh, they're going to be under the ice. I'll just build an ice drill that can keep going. He said that it could get 20 feet through the ice. Foreboding, it did. No, it didn't.
I would imagine that what would actually happen would be that it would drill into the ice and then the whole boat would start spinning.
Yeah, like gets caught or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
That's pretty
but it didn't work.
Okay.
It didn't work very well. He also turned the torpedo bays into pressurized diving chambers for the crew to conduct scientific experiments, which did help a little bit. It was fairly important because it didn't need torpedoes. Hubert, however, didn't love the modifications very much. He thought the hydraulic shock absorber was just going to get stuck in the ice
like
and then it'd get jammed. He's like, ice is not concrete. Like it'll get stuck because it was like kind of big, but by comparison to the rest of the boat, it probably would have been quite sharp. So he didn't think that it was going to work at all.
I feel like torpedoes would be useful. But ice in front of you, just
Torpedo.
tube one.
He also
I think if it
World
was
War One
bad that
torpedoes.
if it was not good for him to buy it as a US citizen, it's not going to be good for him to get torpedoes.
Yeah, he's not going to get torpedoes.
Yeah.
He also didn't love the idea of the sledges along the top of the submarine just grinding and cutting into the ice and then getting stuck.
Mm.
He didn't really like it at all. He's like, no, these are really, really horrible modifications. He wanted to install a photosensitive electrical cell to measure the thickness of the ice on the roof. However, Simon Lake was like, my sub, my rules, no. And Hubert went, okay.
Okay. I'll
Yeah,
take my
he's
free
like-
sub. Thank
He's
you.
like, I need the sub. So Hubert had to accept that the sub was going on the expedition the way that it was. All the gadgets, however, had heaps of problems before they set off, i.e. none of them really did what they were supposed to do, and they weren't good. So with months of repairs and even a separate engineering company that got brought in to fix the drill to make it work, it still didn't work properly, and they just kind of hoped. It just didn't, it didn't work at all. So after months of waiting, Hubert had enough and insisted that they just set off. So part of the deal for this funding from William Hearst, it had some incentives, and this is why Hubert was so keen to set off. So William Randolph Hearst owned a big Zeppelin called the Graf Zeppelin because he was that rich, and he would fly people around in it. And it was pretty cool. He actually flew Hubert and his wife around in it as a prize for his knighthood. It was very exciting. So he was going to fly over the pole as well because they'd proven that it could be done. He was going to take like rich people on a tourist flight over the pole. And he said, I'll give you $150,000 if you can time it that when we're getting to the pole,
you get to
you
the pole.
get to the pole and you drill up through the ice and wave at everybody. And Hubert's like, you son of a bitch, I'm in.
Can you imagine? I reckon an airship voyage over the pole would be pretty boring.
Real boring.
Yeah, like
And
you'd be
probably
looking
really
outside and
uncomfortable.
you're like, oh, it's all ice. And then they go, we're over the pole now. And you're like, oh,
Right?
it's just more ice.
Hi, Santa.
Yeah, pretty
Oh,
pretty much.
get out of my airspace.
Launch the surface to air missiles.
Just the elves like,
Fuck. But it's like candy cane colored or something. Like,
So on the 4th of June,
I want
1931,
to make that movie now.
isn't that red one? Isn't that what
Nah, not really.
okay.
it's more or less the evil Santa Claus thing from
Right.
Futurama. So on the 4th of June, 1931,
Krampus.
No.
No, Krampus was his brother.
Yeah.
It was the Yuletide Witch.
he's just called Santa Claus. He's robot Santa Claus, and he's evil because they built a robot
We're
to
talking about
replace.
Futurama.
I know you're talking about Futurama. I'm talking about Red One.
I haven't seen Red One.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
What do you mean you haven't seen Red One? It was
Was
the
Aaron-
smash hit of Christmas.
I haven't seen the movie.
No, I haven't
You
seen it.
Oh, well, never mind.
Why would I have seen Red One?
It sounds like you were talking about it.
No.
We're talking about Futurama.
I didn't even know basic plot points of it.
Moving on.
Anyway.
June 4th, did you
Anyway.
say?
Anyway, on the 4th of June, 1931, the Nautilus set sail from Connecticut after the modifications were completed in New York City. The first journey across the Atlantic, however, was crap.
Mm.
It was not a very big submarine, and it wasn't really designed to cross the Atlantic Ocean. It was kind of just designed to do some cool stuff, or get towed across. So it was trying to cross by itself. You had 20 men on the crew and a whole bunch of stuff.
That's a lot of seamen.
That's a lot of seamen and a whole bunch of stuff to do a very hard voyage to go somewhere that no one's ever gone before. It was so packed and so full, they couldn't sit down.
Oh, no.
There was nowhere to sit down. And there wasn't enough.
Who decided to do this?
And there wasn't enough bunks for everybody.
Mhm.
So they had to share and take turns. And there was one toilet.
Oh, for 20 dudes?
Yeah.
Oh.
Smack bang in the middle of both engines.
Oh.
Oh, that's a noisy dump.
That's a
That's
noisy dump.
noisy, hot, cramped.
The storms and the waves battered the small submarine the entire way. And at one point, the bilge pump failed and pumped oil and sewage all around the footwell of the sub. Yeah, ew.
Could be worse. Remember that
Itchy.
sub?
Poop deck.
Yeah, remember that sub from my episode that they had a special engineer just to flush it
Yep.
Yeah.
and then failed and then sunk it.
Yeah. That is worse. Only marginally.
Even worse than that, one of the engines failed while they're trying to cross the Atlantic. So they only had one and it could just kind of like peter along.
You imagine just walking down to the engine. You're like, "Are we leaking?" Oh no, that's someone's turd.
That's
Like,
poo.
yeah,
That's a floaty.
a floaty and a sinky.
Floater.
So after one of the engines failed, eventually Hubert was like, send out the SOS. So they sent out an SOS and funnily enough, it did get picked up that day, but they'd been in trouble for a couple of days at that point. So by the time the USS Wyoming found them on the 15th of June, both engines had failed
It's
and
like,
the batteries were dead.
11 days later.
Yeah, it was just
Yep.
floating around the sea and they were just hanging out on the top hoping that someone would find them.
I haven't even got to the ice yet.
Nope, haven't even gotten to England yet. They're still
Oh,
crossing
geez.
from America to
Oh.
England.
Oh right.
That's
So the broken
not how
down-
you enjoy a time.
Yeah, so the broken down sub got towed to Ireland and it arrived on the 22nd of June and then they moved it across to England. So they get to England to try and repair everything. Like, okay, everything is broken.
Everything is broken.
4 crew members
And I've
quit.
got John's poo on my feet.
Everything is broken. We're trying to cross the sea.
Good one.
So 4 crew members quit when they got to England.
Yeah, I would. yeah.
Like instantly, they get there like, nah.
Yeah. Peace out.
Well,
Peace out. I'm
I'm
out
going to
of
go for a
here.
shower.
This shit arm out.
So Hubert's plans were starting to fall
What's that
apart.
out of?
I don't know.
What is that out of?
I don't know.
That's out of something.
I don't think it is.
Yeah, it is.
John's just going to Google this shit. I'm
Just
out.
Googling, not fact check, just Googling pop culture references.
Just Googling swears.
Anyway, so the submarine was falling apart. Due to the time frame of getting the essential repairs completed, Hubert would no longer be able to make the meet up with the Graf Zeppelin for the big prize money, which he was
Lame.
pretty annoyed about. Newspapers around the world, because all of this, they're radioing out all of these updates that are going on, and the newspapers are getting hold of it and being like, "This man is gonna f this up."
Update from the Nautilus. Nothing's
Yes,
happened.
Nothing's happened. Oh, we're in trouble. So newspapers around the world were beginning to trash
Hubert.
Hubert, printing
Hubert,
slander,
more like Poobit.
printing slander and making fun of his potential failure.
That would be slanderous.
That's pretty bad.
Well,
So
I mean,
the-
is it slander if it's fact?
So on the well, they didn't know that.
True.
So on the 28th of June, the Nautilus was now ready to go again and set off for the pole, stopping off in Norway to pick up the scientific part of their crew.
2 weeks. They got it back up and running in 2
2
weeks. That's not a bad effort.
Or more like a week. They got into the 22nd in Ireland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not bad effort.
It's not bad effort.
Well done.
hmm
For 1930.
Wonder if it still stunk.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
So they set off. They set off for the pole via Norway. So they had to pick up the scientific guys from Norway, and then also they were bouncing around the Norwegian islands to get to the North Pole, because obviously Svalbard and everything like that, are sort of these northernmost areas. So on the 15th of August, the sub had reached Svalbard, which is the last inhabited island before the Arctic. By this point, the Nautilus was having constant mechanical issues, but the crew had now gotten better at repairing the sub on the go and the little schedule stops that they had. So they were still in panic mode, but they had it a little bit under control.
How many men are on it at this point?
At this point, we had 20 to begin with. 4 had left. I couldn't find out how many scientific
Yeah.
crew. So let's assume maximum of 20 men.
Hmm,
They had 4 scientific.
that sounds
Stuff.
awful.
Still sounds
Yeah.
pretty rubbish. On the 19th of August, the Nautilus had reached the first layers of Arctic ice. To celebrate, the crew were given some respite and a small break as they stayed on the surface to collect scientific data on the ice, which they actually got some pretty decent stuff. One of the discoveries made was finding out about the layer of warm water deep below the surface, like the sort of current warm waters and how this can affect predictable weather patterns around the world. It's pretty cool.
All right, so you got like the ice,
Yep.
and then obviously like stillish cold water from that ice,
Yep.
and then there's the current
Yep.
flowing through that's bringing in
Yep.
warm water.
Yeah. So they were able to
Right.
detect and study that.
That part of the
Gulf Stream.
is it? Is that what it is? Gulf Stream?
Is the Gulf Stream the one that goes up past Europe?
Unable to fact check.
No, I think the Gulf Stream is the one that goes down the bottom of the US. I can't remember what it's called.
I was thinking of the ones the turtles go in.
In Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
So
It's
the
in
Gulf Stream,
Pacific.
the Gulf Stream is a powerful warm ocean current in the Atlantic Ocean that originates in the Gulf of Mexico, flows along the eastern coastline of the US, and then veers towards the northwest of Europe.
You're probably right.
It's not Arctic. Goes up towards Iceland, but that's about it. It stops.
Yeah. Because the Gulf Stream is the reason why Europe is warm compared to like Canada, even though they're the same latitude, longitude, one of the two.
Cool. So, after a week of traveling through the drift ice, the crew had reached 82 degrees north, which is further than any vessel had ever made under its own power. On board the Nautilus, things were beginning to become very uncomfortable. It's
Beginning to be?
yeah, it was getting worse. So there's no insulation on the submarine at all.
Jeez.
It's
Yep.
just a steel.
Yep. So it's cold.
It's just freezing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just solid steel. There's absolutely no insulation whatsoever. They were always sick from food poisoning, and there were massive amounts of lead in the sub's water pipes.
Oh, no.
So they were just
They're all going
poisoning
mad.
themselves. Yeah, they're going mad.
Yeah.
They're poisoning themselves. They got food poisoning. It's nasty. The repairs had taken so long, they were now getting late in the season to make the journey, and winter was getting much closer. So it was getting colder and getting harder, and the days were getting shorter, and it was getting pretty scary. All the crew wanted to turn around. They're like, nah,
We've had it.
we've had it. We want to turn around. And then Hubert was like, no. And they went, oh, well, okay. So we keep going.
We must push forward.
Yeah, we got to keep going.
Hubert, I've got lead poisoning. I don't care.
It just would have been rubbish.
I've got PB poisoning.
It just would have been absolutely terrible. So on August the 22nd, Hubert said, dive. He's like, we're going to go under the ice. We've hit the big stuff. We're going under the ice. Let's do it. And you know what happened?
They hit more ice.
Couldn't
No,
sink.
they couldn't sink under the ice. The let's just call it the rudder for the depth control of the submarine.
The water aileron.
It's not called that, but sure, call it the water aileron.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Oh,
It's
it
gone.
just got ripped off.
No, we don't know. It's just gone. So they sent some divers out, which would have been
So
absolutely
cold.
so cold
Yeah.
to investigate, and they're like, yeah, it's gone. It's just gone.
So,
Jeez.
so it had a vertical rudder.
It has a vertical,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
But
how.
they're not just using like ballast.
They have ballast as well.
So
That's how submarines work. They've got.
So the ballast,
no,
the
they don't.
ballast,
They use the ballast go up and down.
the ballast helps them sink, but this it actually controls.
So under forward momentum, they could
it controls the
tip
movement.
the nose down type of
Yes.
thing. Right.
So at this point, they're diving and they're trying to find it, and it's not there. So they're all like, "Oh no, it must have been ripped off." And Hubert's like, "You bastards did it." So he was starting to get convinced that they'd sabotaged the submarine
Mad old Hubert
to
from the
make
lead
them-
poisoning.
to make them turn around. Yeah, the lead poisoning was starting to kick in. Not real great.
Sabotage.
Yeah, he was beginning to suspect
Sabotage.
sabotage. At this point, the papers back home, even William Hurst were telling Hubert to just give up and come home.
Yeah.
This is getting really dangerous. It's late in the season. Everyone's going to die. Except William Hurst was saying that in the papers, but his company was directly messaging Hubert with
You need to get
radiograms
this
saying,
done.
get this done.
Yeah.
So Hubert went, Darryl, we got to go, reminding him of his commitment that he'd made and the amount of money that they'd actually given towards him. So on the 31st of August, Hubert ordered that the ballast tanks of the sub be flooded with water to weigh it down and the trim and pitch of the sub to be set 2 degrees down, and he would ram the sub under the ice.
Jeez.
He was just going to hit it at full speed and shove it under the ice.
Something
Ugh.
I've never really fully understood with submarines is they fill their ballast tubes
Yes.
with water.
Yes.
How do they empty them to go back up?
Pumps.
Compressed air.
They have compressed air?
Yeah.
Okay.
They just pump the water
Because you
out.
can't just find air to refill it with.
No, it's compressed air.
Compress,
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I actually think they use like a chemical reaction. I don't think it's air, but
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Anyway,
Never looked into it, but yeah.
so the sound of the sea scraping, the sound of the sub scraping on the ice screamed through the metal of the substructure, sounding as if the sub was being ripped apart.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that would have been fun either.
No, it's just this big metal substructure and they're just dragging it on the ice.
Oh, it's giving me, I'm getting like goosebumps in the hair standing up just thinking about like what that could potentially sound like. There's a terrible sound that happens on the RAF base every now and again. It's when the C-17 comes hooking over the base.
Mhm.
Their engines scream. It always sounds like when they are like, I don't imagine they're full throttle, but they're probably close to it, right? When they come flying over the base low, it sounds like they are tearing the metal off the roofs. Like the engines scream. It's terrifying. I imagine something like that. Just metal ripping, bending and buckling. Yeah, it's ugh. And if you're in a metal tube and that sound's happening and you're poisoned with lead, I can't imagine it's a good...
yeah, lead poisoning doesn't help there, does it?
Well, once they get under, they're there. That's it. It's like we don't have a great deal of control. We can go forward, we can go back, we can turn left and right, but that's about it. We can't control our depth very well.
Under the bottom
just
of
bumping
the ice.
under the pipe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just bumping it.
So they get under there. They're like, we should probably test this drill pretty soon. Doesn't work.
Yeah, cool.
Doesn't work at all.
Why didn't they test it before they went under?
On what?
Yeah, what are they going to test on the
They
air?
weren't under.
Yeah, the air. Just make sure it works.
Oh, I'm sure it worked on the air, but it got stuck in the ice straight away.
And then it did the spinny thing. The sub
It
started
didn't
spinning.
necessarily. So yeah, it got jammed and they couldn't surface it all. They reckon it got like a few feet in and then it would get jammed straight away. It was
Yeah.
supposed to be able to go through 20 feet of ice, which also probably wouldn't have been enough, but
Yeah.
whatever. Wilkins had now, Hubert, I don't know why I called him by his last name in this paragraph. Hubert had now made the decision that the whole world and his crew had been kind of hoping for, which was
Time to go home.
time to go home. So he made the radio call out, the expedition is over. I'm returning home. So that got radioed out. All the newspapers are like, no, Hubert failed, all this other sort of stuff.
You suck, Hubert.
Yeah, so they turn around and they start heading back. The specifics of how they turned the damn thing around would have been awful.
Well, they probably still had a vertical rudder.
Hey, it would have been bloody awful because they're dragging on the top at the time. Like they didn't have that much depth control. So it would have been quite a challenge to actually turn it around.
Hubert, more like Poobert.
Don't do that. We already did that.
Did you?
So Hubert,
Yes.
so
Said
Hubert,
that about the stepping around in sewage.
Okay.
Sorry, Sean.
so Hubert had decided that
Poobert?
Oh my
you guys are the worst when you're not hosting.
god.
Like, just the worst. So Hubert had decided to head for England. Unfortunately, he was forced to take refuge in Bergen because it couldn't make it back.
Oh.
It was just busted up. Because of the fierce storm that they'd encountered on the route, the Nautilus had suffered serious damage that made further use of the vessel completely unfeasible. The crew abandoned, and Hubert had received permission from the United States Navy to sink the vessel off the shore of a Norwegian fjord on the 20th of November 1931, where it still is.
Did it have heating?
No, I said that.
How cold do you reckon it would have got?
Oh, how cold's the water? It would have got that cold.
Very damn cold.
Probably like sub-zero.
It would be ice then. It'd be
No.
close to like 1, 2, 2 or 3, 4
Salt
degrees.
water has
Salt
a lower.
water has a lower. Yeah,
True. Yep.
yeah, nasty stuff.
Mm.
So yeah, it got sunk off the Norwegian fjord on the 20th of November 1931, and it's still there. Despite failing to meet his intended objective, he was able to prove that submarines were capable of operating beneath the polar ice. This paved the way for future successful missions to the pole by newer, more advanced submarines such as the USS Skate, which was the first nuclear-powered submarine to cross under the ice of the North Pole.
What was the first?
Sorry, no, that wasn't the first one. My mistake. That was actually the USS Nautilus was the first nuclear-powered sub to cross under the ice. The Skate actually scattered his ashes at the pole.
Oh, nice.
So he
Then
died at the
did an
age of
ollie and flipped away.
he died at the age of 70 in Massachusetts, poor and forgotten.
Oh.
He was once one of the greatest Arctic.
jeez.
He was once one of the greatest Arctic and Antarctic explorers of his day, but the world had forgotten him, as others had later done what he could not.
Mm.
The USS Nautilus, the nuclear
North.
sub, named in honor of the first attempt, would make its crossing under the North Pole in 1958. So it took 30 years.
Yeah.
Not only was it the first nuclear-powered sub to go under the ice, it was the first nuclear-powered sub.
I don't think I'd want to be on the first nuclear powered sub. Just between you and I.
I think it did better than the first Nautilus.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
Well, good story.
And that's the story of Hubert Wilkins, Sir Hubert Wilkins.
Yeah.
Decorated war hero.
It's a shame that he died penniless.
Not penniless, just he was pretty well bankrupt, but he made it to 70, wasn't
Yeah, after getting $210,000 in the 30s.
in the 30s, yeah.
He could have just walked away and just
Been fine
Yeah.
forever.
lived. Yeah.
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 Interesting, Sean. The commanding officer for the USS Nautilus,
Mhm.
initial commanding officer, not quite Herbert Wilkins.
Mhm.
It was Eugene Wilkinson. Pretty close. It's interesting.
I'm sure that came up. Wilkins' son.
It definitely would have come up.
I enjoy these exploration based stories.
You love a good
I
exploration.
love a good exploration. And they explored the hell out of that.
We've done both poles.
I love how janky it was too. They're like,
Yeah.
put a stick on top that bounces off the ice, and then we'll
Yeah.
put some skids so we can just skid on the ice, and we'll put a big stick on the front, and we'll put a big drill on the top, and none of it'll
What if-
work.
what
It'll
if
be
we got-
brilliant.
What if we got a bunch of ice skates and turned them upside down and put
Yeah.
them on?
It's literally just at that, there's no, it's just gadgets.
That's all it
They're
was.
just
Yeah.
gadgets. It's not even this is going to be really amazing, groundbreaking. No, we're just going to stick gadgets on an already
Yeah.
existing old submarine.
We're just
Yeah.
going to MacGyver it.
It was already pretty old.
It was
It's
a World
really
War
cool.
One sub by that point,
Yeah.
so it would have been 15 years old. Yeah.
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah. And this is at the time where things got better quickly. It's not like your 15-year-old car, which still has CarPlay.
Yeah, things were going rapid.
Mm.
It's wild. Big yawn right at the end. Thanks. Whole episode of
Yeah.
everyone interrupting me and then I yawn at the end.
Yeah, we love a good explore. We've done both poles now. Done the moon.
Yep.
What else is there for
We've
cheeky?
explored the 30s.
Yeah, what
a
else?
fair
Is,
bit.
what else is there for cheeky tales
done
to
Everest.
explore?
Yeah, well, we haven't
We've-
done.
we've done part
you
of
did
Everest.
Did you do Hillary?
No, I haven't done Hillary because I
talked
haven't.
about doing
I've
Hillary.
talked about doing Hillary because
I briefly talked about Hillary.
I haven't found a way to make it that interesting.
Yeah.
Surely there's some sort of exploration of a desert somewhere that we could probably cover.
Yeah, probably. I mean, we haven't
just-
done Burke and Wills,
Yep.
which is sad, but
Did you know that Lewis and Clark, one of them was murdered?
Yeah.
I learned that the other day. Today, actually, this morning.
we haven't done Mackenzie. He was a great explorer. Tried to find the Northwest Passage.
Yep. There's a few of them.
There's
Got to do the Terror. Got to do that sometime.
Yeah, Terra's a good one.
Anyway.
We've done Captain Cook.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, yeah, we did do Captain Cook, didn't we?
We did Captain Cook.
Forgot about that episode.
We haven't done Arthur Van Diemen, but that's fair. We sort of covered him in passing.
Dino.
Covered him in passing.
Cheeky exploration.
Cheeky explorations.
Exploration Tales.
So yeah, thanks for
Yeah, good episode.
coming along. I've been trying to do that one for a bit.
Yeah.
thanks, Sean.
Yeah,
Got
Thanks.
there in the end.
good
Sorry
old Nautilus.
Sorry for being assholes.
I'm not. It was for the content.
It's for content. I'm not really sorry. The apology was for content as well.
You guys were very good at me actually starting a sentence and then they're like,
It's because there's
which
two.
we only ever do in a bit for you. We do it as a bit in the intro.
It's because there's two of us.
Yeah, it's pain.
How
And
does
usually
that
it's only
feel?
one person, and then you're just over there reading whatever you're reading.
Keeping up to date.
Yeah. It's because there's two of us, we're just feeding off each other.
Yep.
Oh, we've lost that camera. Anyway, we will be back in another fortnight. It as always been lovely to listen to a story and to speak to you all.
Yeah. Thanks for tagging along.
We will see you soon.
Hope you enjoyed Boat Chat with Sean.
Good
Keep
night.
exploring Chiquitos.
Keep exploring Chiquitos. Go and do a cartography degree to map the world that's already been mapped.
Yeah, Google Maps doesn't exist.
Yeah. You haven't. Yeah, make your own maps.
Good
Don't
night.
believe what Big Map
You
needs you to
can
believe.
make your own maps.
You've been listening to Cheeky Tales Podcast. If you'd like to see supplemental images related to our episodes or to interact with us about our episodes, hit us up on @CheekyTalesPod on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You can watch our episodes on YouTube or listen to them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.